Back with Kohli and Cavanaugh here on Midwest Ag, talking about the report that came out here the other day. And boy, I tell you what, these poor traders had a lot to deal with this past week, trying to worry about what the surprise was going to be from USDA in this report. But also month end, quarter end, and we're going into a 3-day weekend, and the market closed for Good Friday. And here we are, Easter weekend, a 3-day weekend. Boy, I tell you what, these traders had their hands full. David, stocks were less of a shock, and I think maybe because the expectations of the trade were pretty close to USDA's numbers.
Yeah, the soybeans came in just a little bit higher at 1.845. The pre-report guess was 1.828, so not much difference. But the corn number, to me, was the surprise. It was expected at 8.427, and the corn number that was this year's 8.347. So where did this extra corn go to? What happened to it? We know animal numbers aren't that great right now, and exports are better, yes, and they're getting strong, so that might be one of the figurative factors. But Karen Braun had a long-term estimate of what affects these prices more in this type of report this time of year, and it was the grain stocks. Now, not many people talk about the grain stocks because they're more interested in planted acreage, but when you look long-term at the grain stocks, it's more predictive. And when you have a bullish grain stocks number, like for corn, it tends to put the corn market up. The bean number is neutral to a little bit negative, so it's just going to drift along a little bit. But corn has the big fund short in it, and when they start to come out, you might see some higher prices in the corn near term, I hope.
Yeah, David, I agree with you completely on that. It certainly could. And that stocks number wasn't terribly bullish, but it was certainly slightly bullish. What is that, about 80 million less corn than expected? That means at some point it's got to come out of the projected carryover. And I think, ethanol usage is running above expectations. And frankly, right now, exports are running above expectations thanks to Mexico. And I think that's going to continue. So that gives the market a little bit more of a push as well. Then again, the report at the end of June, everybody focuses on acres, but quite often our biggest surprises come in the stocks number. Corn got help from both the acres and the stocks, and so maybe we can keep this rally going for a while.
And what's really interesting going forward is that these acreage numbers are flexible. We know we can change our minds, but these quarterly stocks are written in stone. You're not going to change that corn number from the 1st of March, but these prospective plantings, it's like writing on a chalkboard.
John, you had mentioned about Mexico, and Mexico has really been saving our bacon lately in a whole lot of different ways, and you'll understand the pun on that when we talk about livestock. But U.S. corn export sales, David, came in on the higher end of estimates for the week, ending 3/21. Total corn sales were reported at 47.5 million bushels. Pretty nice. And, of course, Mexico again, David, top buyer.
Yeah, definitely. They bought 582,000 tons. Canada, the second, 190.2. And Colombia, again, a big buyer, 146.2. Oops, bean numbers, ouch. It's like dropping a lead pipe on your foot. They were down. They were negative. So that was just, everybody looks like the beans are just getting kicked to the side. Now, Germany was a big buyer of beans, and so was Mexico a big buyer. But I'll tell you what, this big cancellation really hurt the bean export sales.
Yeah, and we don't talk a lot about wheat on a lot of occasions, but boy, I tell you what, on a global scale, wheat has had some headwinds for a number of different reasons, but I think a lot of it out of the Black Sea region, David?
Right. The Black Sea region, they have been getting some rains, and their crops look fairly decent. But here's the big one. Russia is dry and getting drier and forecast to stay dry. And, they've been quiet about what export sales of wheat are occurring. They're trying to cancel some to some countries. And Russia has been affected more than what Ukraine has been helped by their extra precip there with the lower precip in Russia.
We can't get out of here without talking about South America, John, and that is Ag Rural estimated Brazil soybean harvest is 69% complete as of last Thursday. So it's probably up from that. And last week, John, you had also mentioned about the safrinha corn planting right at about 100% complete, and that was substantiated again this week. What are you hearing out of South America, John?
Well, I'll tell you one thing I heard that really kind of shocked me, and this is another bad thing, that soybeans really did not have a good day on Thursday because
Right.
AgroConsult, a private consulting firm out of Brazil, upped their Brazilian bean production to 158 million tons. Whoa! Now that came out of nowhere. We know that the crop has been hurt by dry weather, and the yields and many privates are down in that 148 number. USDA was kind of laughed at a 155 number. And AgroConsult comes out at 158 million tons. Went the opposite direction. And the reason why is not yields. Yes, the yields are hurt, but I don't know how accurate it is. But their data suggests there's been a lot more hectares planted than what is currently believed, and that's where that extra production is coming from. If that's accurate, that's pretty bearish.
Yeah. Before we get to John's final word of the day, we got to talk about livestock. And David, when we were talking about export sales, I tell you what, Mexico. Big winner again. And when it came to pork, boy, I'll tell you what, our Mexican friends love it.
Yeah, they sure do. Mexico bought 32.8. The only closest one was Japan at 5.7. Beef sales were low. I'm disappointed at 12.7. Now, Korea and Japan both bought 3.4, but Canada bought 2 also. So I was glad for the Canadian interest. Shows up both these countries on both sides of our borders are good buyers of our beef, and I'd like to see them buy even more.
All right, time for that final word, Mr. Cavanaugh. You've been researching heavily. What do you got for us?
Well, we can talk about these acres and how they're going to change and what's going to affect prices, but we're at the time of year now. We're entering that time of the year when weather is going to be the dominant factor. It's going to affect how many acres get planted. It's going to affect, of course, how many get produced with the yield. And the focus is really going to be heavily on that because that's going to affect the price 70 to 80% now until we get into, next late July or August. So anyhow, the latest indications are that El Nino is going to be returning for the summer. Maybe El Nino will be in effect as early as May, I understand.
Mm-hmm.
And La Nina is expected to be in effect this coming fall. Now, what does that mean for the crops? Well, if this is accurate and El Nino returns, that favors spring planting. If the weather conditions could favor no major problems with spring planting, that means, more corn acres. At least I think it'll be more corn acres because typically that's what's happened in the past. And of course, I think we're going to get more corn acres, period, if the weather's favorable. And for the summer, it also suggests warmer, wetter weather, which also suggests favorable yields. All that means that we could get more acres, good yields, and another large corn crop. And right now, the market is trying to buy corn acres. It usually succeeds when it does that. So the bottom line is, I hope and I think we may be in for a rally in corn here for a while. And seasonally, prices are usually moved higher during the spring. Guys, good opportunity to sell.
The Visit Each Week with Kohli and Cavanaugh is made possible by support from the Allen County Farm Bureau. Your local Indiana Farm Bureaus support Indiana agriculture in every way, from the classroom programs for kids to things like broadband. I'm working with the State Farm Bureau right now on ways for us to make sure that we can get better broadband access into every farm town in the state of Indiana. And when you support the Farm Bureau with a membership, you are supporting those kinds of activities, the kind that support farm families. Go online to paystobeamember.org.
Podcasts by Federated Media.